And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and this is going to be story time. Now, I end all of my live streams with story time, so if you want to see story time in its natural state, go to my live streams, watch it, and at the end, you'll always see a story time. Now, that has become quickly the most popular portion of my live stream, and many people are actually asking me to make it its own series. So I'm going to cut this out of my last live stream, the story time out of my last live stream. I'm going to make it its own video so it's way shorter so the general populace can watch story time and story time alone and see how they like it. If you like the video and you like story time, make sure you leave me a like so I can see in relevance how popular this series is in comparison to other videos I've done. As always, I love when you guys come and enjoy story time with me, so make sure you keep your gaming on and enjoy story time. For story time, we're gonna bring me up like this because the game is done. We're gonna do story time. So this is about a dog incident. This dog incident occurred at my old house I just moved from. And what happened? I'm going to tell you kind of the backdrop, the story for what happened with this dog incident. And then there was kind of an aftermath. And in the aftermath story, that's kind of the funnier story that kind of happened. But we got to talk about the pre-story to know the aftermath story. So it's kind of the first part of the story is a little bit rough. So I was law enforcement at the time. As law enforcement, even on my days off, I carried. I had my Glock on my ankle, and I was doing bills. I was sitting there typing away at the desk doing bills. Well, actually, it was the kitchen table. And outside, just straight shot from me, was my front door open, and my wife was on the front porch, and she was watching two kids under the age of 2. And we had our little dog out there. It was a puggle, our little dog. She's tiny, only about 30 pounds. And she was out on the front porch. And my wife and I were talking, which is why we had the door open, because we wanted to chat between each other. So we start chatting it up, and I'm doing bills, and she's watering her plants on her front porch, and she's holding the baby. And all of a sudden I hear, help, 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 help. And I look up, and the neighbor's pit bull. Now, pause. This is not a story to denigrate pit bulls or to try and say how certain breeds are worse than others. I'm not going there. This is an isolated incident. It's just one of those stories in my life. It was a pit bull, though. The pit bull's name was Diablo. It was a neighbor's dog. And I don't think the dog was necessarily, evil or bad or mean or whatever, but it only takes an incident, right? And this was that incident. Unfortunately, Diablo got out, and Diablo was running the neighborhood, and we didn't know. And we're out in the country. So we all have, I had 5 acres. I mean, we often were out and about. And we had this same neighbor had dogs, and then dogs would get out, jump our fence and kill our chicken. So we already had dog issues, but it was nothing that I would hurt a dog for. I mean, we would just say, hey, you need to replace our chicken that your dog killed. But Diablo got out, and I look up from paying bills, and there's my wife holding a 8-month-old up like this, trying to keep it from being attacked by the pit bull, who's trying to jump up and get the baby. And then the pit bull pinned my dog, my 30-pound tiny little puggle, onto the ground. And the dog's hair was up. The tail was tucked. He was dominating my dog and nipping sideways, stay down, I own you. And was looking at my wife while pinning my dog and gnashing at my wife. I jumped up from bills, grabbed my gun, put it at the low ready, and walked out. Why? Because if I go out there and the dog mauls me to death, I can't help anybody. I can't even call 911. So I went out there at the low ready, but I was fully intentionally planning on grabbing Diablo by the collar behind his head and pulling him off and walking him back home. So sadly, as I got up, he saw me get up because the door was open, and he saw me, and he took me as a threat, and he charged me, came running full bore at me, and jumped and gnashed out at me, jumped out with his teeth and came lunged at me. And so I went from low ready to cap, 2 shots to the head. Unfortunately, he fell and died on my kitchen floor. And he lunged so heartily that the first shot I was straight on. The second shot, I actually had to cant my body to actually get to the side of him because he had closed the gap, closed the distance so crazily fast. Sadly, he passed. Obviously, 2 shots to the dome does that. So the dog passed away. I had to call 911, which is always weird when you're a cop because you're like, I am 911. But I called the cops because it was in the county where I lived and I was city, so it was a different jurisdiction. And they came and they did their investigation and said, oh yeah, this is like more than justified. The dog is inside your home, in your kitchen, like deep in your house, like 15 feet in your house from your door. Like this is an obvious self-defense situation. It's a tragedy, but it is what it is. And I said, yeah, it's really sad. So it was a really, really terrible, situation. And unfortunately I had to dispatch the dog to save my own life, but it made a terrible mess, right? It made a terrible mess. One of the bullets went into the dog. The second bullet went through and into the wall, and it shot his blood up all over the wall. Like this is a 2-story wall, and it went all over the 2-story wall. And I have kids, guys. I got, at the time we were doing foster care. We had foster kids. I had my kids, my wife and I, if you guys don't know, my first 2 kids are from her previous marriage. So I actually have 2 technical step kids, although they're basically mine because I've been in their life since they were 1 and 3, and they're now in their 20s. So I've been in their life basically their whole life. But the 1-year-old who's now, he's at the time was like 14 years old. My son's name is Dylan. Dylan comes home from school and he walks in. And by the way, I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are going to come home. They're going to see like blood everywhere and a dead dog body. And this is going to be traumatic for a child, right? And I don't want the trauma to any of my children. In fact, my children from elementary school at the time, they were in elementary school, were going to come home and see this. And I was just like, my goodness. So they got, the cops got the dog out of there. They called animal control, who got the dog out of there, which was good. But then after they got the dog out of there, I had to clean up the blood mess. So I cleaned the whole floor up. I cleaned the whole railing system between the first and second floor. I got all of it off. The stuff on the carpet, my wife was like, well, I'll shampoo it, just get it wet and try and loosen it up. And then the only thing left was the wall. That was it, just this huge 2-story wall of blood. So I got cleaning stuff out. I'm over there. I'm on a ladder, if you will. And this was me, like, desperately trying to clean this blood off before my kids get home and see this nightmare of a space on the wall. And so I'm like drastically scrubbing the blood, and in walks my stepson, who's like 14, a tumultuous teenager. And as all teenagers, you sometimes get along with him and you sometimes don't, but he walks in and this is what happens. So this is his backpack, and he's like, nah. Where's mom? He thought I'd killed his mom. He was like, thought he walked in on a murder scene. Now, if I had my wits about me and I was a jerk, I would have probably said, help me clean it or you're next. You know what I mean? I could have totally pulled that funny card, but he actually legit thought I'd killed his mom. So I was like, no. It was a dog. Like, help me clean this up before the girls get home. And he helped me out. So I didn't pull his leg, but my goodness, in that moment, I had this moment where I was like, that's right. And you're next if you don't help me. Anyway, crazy story. Super sad to see myself have to dispatch a dog in my home. Didn't want to have to do that. Again, I thought the dog was probably a nice dog normally or whatever. But it was just a tragedy, terrible situation. But the moment my son walked in, saw me frantically cleaning the blood off the wall and did not see mom and saw the concern in my eyes, he just knew that I had killed his mom. Like, that moment, I could have so played with his mind, but I didn't. I'm a good guy. I didn't play with his mind, but I wanted to. But anyway,